Welcome back to the podcast. It's been quite a while since I put out an episode of Taking Back Birth, and I don't know, this could be one of the last. I'm going to move on to other projects, but Margot is here, and I feel like that's so appropriate. And we're going to talk about all kinds of things, deep things, just some simple questions around us and our school and where we're headed and what's up. So let's just jump in and take us somewhere. Where do you want to start?
I think you were saying you wanted to start with sort of like a history of all of this. So, which version of
Right,
history?
right, right. What version of history?
Which
Well,
segment?
I think this will play into the conversation too, but the reason that feels important is just because things move so fast these days, like with social media. And I feel like a lot of our listeners don't really need the history. And then it's amazing, how quickly things are forgotten. And, having 8 years, right? Or is it almost 9?
Yeah, almost 9 or
8 or 9
9.
years, 9 years invested in the creation and execution of a midwifery school, we feel is so important and such a lot. And yeah, I think there are a lot of people that just don't even know the school exists or think, oh, we just like came up with that last year or like used AI to make a school or whatever. So we wanted to just set the record straight and just give, yeah, I think a brief history of any of it, wherever you want to start.
Sure. Yeah, I think I'm reminded like over and over again, and someday hopefully I get the lesson a little bit more permanently affixed inside my brain. But even people who are really close to me, like people I talk to every day or at least weekly, um, one, a lot of them don't know about this part of my life, which is fascinating, and
Yeah.
even the ones who do don't know the specifics or details. So yeah, I think it's worth starting at the beginning of the school at least. And I know we've talked about this on some of the other podcasts, but we promise this one's going to be different. um yeah, so the school really to me was kind of born out of the conferences that we hosted, which feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
um when we brought people together in real life a couple years in a row, and um just the momentum started building around what it is we were talking about, sort of the unique flavor we were bringing to the table in the world of birth and midwifery. And at that time, all those years ago, like there wasn't a whole lot in the way of variety or options in terms of midwifery education. In some ways, like the world of internet courses was still really young.
Yeah.
And, you know, which is crazy to say today, especially if you're listening to this as someone who is younger and you're like, what? Like there's a course for literally everything. There's 50 courses for any topic, or there's a YouTube video about anything I could ever want to learn. Like we put up, this is going way back even before the conferences and stuff, but we put up that video about like how to palpate your baby and how to listen with a fetoscope. And unless I'm totally wrong, like I'm pretty sure we were the first people to do that, like to put that on YouTube. Like
Yeah.
it was the the Wild West, so to speak. It was uncharted territory, this like birth internet thing. Birth videos weren't even like super accessible, and if they were, they're like grainy and terrible. And anyways, so I digress. The school really was birthed out of these conferences and the energy around them. We had the Wise Woman Circle, which was this, I can't even remember the structure or format at this point, but it was a Facebook group with regular calls, like literal phone calls, right? Were they literally on the phone? There was no video. It's like pre Zoom. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think so. I know. It's like remembering dinosaurs with a lot of this. Like, I was thinking, not to interrupt you, but just
No, go
our
for
how
it.
to have an indie birth course, like how that
Mhm.
was the first thing we did, and, how we did put it online, but there were no course platforms. So, like, we had it on our site. And yeah, I feel like there were a lot of cool things we did back in the day, like kind of before anybody, because we just had this like passion to teach women and also talk about, radical birth and not having a license and some other things. But go
Yeah.
on.
Sure, sure, sure. And I think maybe I'll say that since you used the word teaching, I think that's huge, especially as we're talking about the midwifery school. I think when we started out, like when you and I first met, I don't think either of us maybe would have called ourselves teachers, but it's funny to think that way now or think about that now because that feels like, at least for me, like an inherent, part of who I am that I just didn't realize kind of until we were invited into that role, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Through some of the, we were putting things out, and then the feedback we were getting was like, more, give us more, we want more.
Yeah.
And people literally were saying, like, when are you going to put out a midwifery school? Like, we want to learn midwifery. At that point, from you, I was still your student, but like, from this perspective that Maryn is talking about. And um, and we've talked about this a bunch of places, but the short version is we were like, yeah, maybe someday. And then it just sort of quickly came together as like, well, why not now? I
Yeah.
think it was probably on the heels of one of those conferences, like the 2016 one, and being like, man, people are asking us for this. Like, maybe we could make it happen.
Yeah. And they weren't just conferences. We did what, 3 conferences that were like really exciting and like successful, I'd say. And then we did some hands-on skills workshops,
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's right.
And
That's right.
that's where like
Really were
the
getting asked.
direct, yeah, like these women were coming to learn skills. And gosh, I remember just being like, this is so overwhelming to teach because we don't have like a foundational curriculum. So, we need to go back to the beginning so that desire that came from other people, please start a school. It really did make sense because it was really difficult to teach how do you handle a hemorrhage or whatever just out of the sky. Like people needed to understand where we were coming from and what we believed and what our experience was. So the school
Yeah.
came out of that too.
Yeah. And at the time, there were really like two other options kind of in our like corner of the world philosophically.
Yeah.
And they both were being run by people who were older who didn't seem as interested in like emerging technologies. um so the online learning aspect, especially because the women who wanted this were not in one place, they were all over the country, all over the world. um it just made sense as because the other thing was people were asking us like, hey, I want to be a midwife, where do you recommend that I go learn? And we could share those options, but it was never like wholeheartedly, because there were still either fundamental philosophical differences or just like the clunkiness of the format um,
Yeah, for
made it
sure.
such that we, something that we set out to do, and I think we mostly were successful at. Maybe we could reflect on this. Um, was to make a program for women that was flexible enough that it honored kind of where they were at. So many of our students have babies of their own or are currently having babies during the program, young mothers, but also had enough structure and accountability around it that they would actually finish it. Because that was the complaint we heard most frequently about one of the other programs. And we really wanted to make it not only like possible, but like provide kind of like the oomph and support so that people would come out the other side having learned all these amazing things.
Yeah, I mean, it took me, God, I want to say 6 years with like gaps and holes to complete the midwifery school I was enrolled in, which, was a long time ago. So I'm not criticizing how it went really, but we wanted to improve upon that, obviously. Like, no mailing in assignments, like there were things that just needed to be better and flow better so that women could actually, like you say, finish and emerge ready for an apprenticeship, because that's the goal. That's always been the goal. How do we create more midwives? that's a question I feel like we've consistently been asking.
Yeah.
We want to create more midwives. How is the best way to do that? And, it's gotten so noisy. And this is like another topic in the last bunch of years, because I think there's even discrepancy around what a midwife is and how one goes about becoming one. But I feel like we were really pure and still are in that focus. A
Mm-hmm.
midwife is someone that, yes, supports women, but has hands on training and has experience and is able to access her intuition and wisdom. And at the same time, is really practical and, knows how to take care of herself. So over the years, what we learned as midwives continued to be incorporated into the program. And I think that's worth saying. And again, it's not really a criticism, it's just a factual observation that many of the other schools, even to this day, are run by people that aren't midwives, that were never midwives. So, that's something we had from the start. And funny enough, here we are now, not attending birth. So we're kind of coming full circle, but it doesn't take
Yeah.
away from all the years that we did. So, anyway.
No, I think that's a really interesting place if we wanted to stay there for a moment, because as you were saying that, I wanted to point that out too, just that that was something we talked a lot about when people were like, well, what makes your program different? And at the time, it was we are both actively practicing as midwives. We both have full caseloads. We are seeing people, you know, all the time, multiple births a month. We're learning new things in real time. We're grappling with the reality of doing this in the modern context, which, I mentioned the two kind of, I don't like the word competitor, but, the two other kind of schools that were there when we started, and now there's more. But like you were saying, like that's just not the case. Like even if people had practiced at some point as a midwife, it was often in a different era. It was in a different, and it was in a different way, and with different populations than people are actually talking about serving now. And that would like, if it's 30, say it's 20 years from now, and I'm like, I was a midwife, I'm going to make a midwifery school about my experience as a midwife in the 2000s, like the early 2000s, but we're talking, in 2046 or something. Like that would be nonsense. Like it's going to be different then too. Um like that experience will still be there and is still relevant, but there's just an element of like when you're that removed, I think, from the emotional experience of being a midwife and like the way those decisions feel and like sitting with women through like really hard things, like the program that would come out of that is just totally different than something that's comes from an in the moment real experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Our own lives have shaped this school. I think that's what you're saying too.
Yeah, there we go.
And they continue to, when we get to that part in the conversation. Um I actually see it as this like, 360 degrees, like full circle creation now, because we're not, we started as obviously younger midwives with less experience. We moved into being more experienced. And now I feel like, we're kind of coming around the other side, not attending births, which having attended births for so long gives you a lot of
Yeah.
perspective and different things to focus on. Um, but gosh, I just see it as so valuable to our students. Like, when they ask a question now, it's not how I would have answered it 5 years ago. But I think there's something so much deeper, if I do say, about the way like we're able to see it now. So, you know, being at one place for too long, I think does create stagnancy to a certain extent. So I'm just saying that I think our school feels really complete in the way that we've lived it, which is why we're also at a point now of saying, like, perhaps this is the end. We've
Yeah.
come kind of full circle. We've been in a lot of different roles. We've had a lot of different experiences. including some like super challenging ones for both of us. And now we're kind of on the other side, and we're both still working with women, but it's taken on a different flavor that midwifery students can still learn from, and I think still
Yeah.
appreciate, and maybe will make it even richer for them to walk that path of midwife, knowing that like none of us stay the same. I think that's sort of
Yeah.
one of the lessons of like maturing in life that I don't necessarily always like embracing change. You know, but I wasn't going to stay that midwife forever. Not
Couldn't.
if I was growing and changing, right? And you
Mhm.
too. And I feel like one huge reason for that that feels really like poignant is the women that we served. I don't know, like they were our teachers in part. And I don't know, like people have changed or something, like the world has changed, culture has changed. And so we've had to move along with that and still say to women, you know, it's worth it for you to walk this path. It's worth it for you to serve women in the way that you want to. And there are just foundational skills, no matter how we change, no matter how we grow, no matter what we pile on top, there are still just like basic things I think you need to know as someone that's going to sit with women, and sort of basic ways that you need to know yourself. So I see it as like a richer experience for our students, being at this place. But I feel like I skipped ahead in the story, so sorry.
No, 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 no. It's okay. It's making me think of that. Is it Joni Mitchell? Both sides now. That song. I've looked at life from both sides now. From
I don't know it, but that's cool.
it's about eight. It's a beautiful song. I think it's Joni Mitchell. And I think that's a really cool way of putting it. And I hadn't really thought about it that way before. That like the school as it exists right now, which is we did skip ahead, which is like the 2.0 version right now, really does combine this, like the raw, super energetic, like early stuff from us, that was formed, and like things that would happen where we'd be at a birth and there'd be a birth video that came out of that birth and it gets added into the course. Like there was that energy happening with permission, of course. Um, and then now there's also this kind of like softer, more reflective, and like more skilled, as both of us have
Yeah.
grown in our skill sets and gotten away from it, where we've kind of like added in, or like it's like I'm picturing like the boulders in a jar, and then you fill in like the little pebbles, and then there's like the sand, and it's like really just filling out the picture in a way that I'm really proud of how we've done it. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, how did we
Yeah.
skip ahead so far? What did we do? Where are we?
Well, I mean, I feel like we could just catch people up like really simply. Like we started the school, that was 9 years ago. We literally had it on note cards. This wasn't like we had AI or anything crazy. Like this was all, every single word, every single video, every single handout, every single audio
Well, and that
was
was the other
created.
part. That was the
Yeah.
other part too, is that the schools that were available, or the programs that were available, didn't have any of that multimedia. Like that was something that was really important to us, I think, was having the audio, having the video. We had good readings still, and concrete assignments and tasks, and also the live component, but that was something that was really missing from the other options that were available at that point too.
Yeah.
With a
And
lot
gosh,
of content creation, like so
yeah.
much.
Yeah. Honestly, it's not a competition, but I don't think anyone has us beat in that. I mean, I have like over 300 episodes of this podcast alone. This podcast has been, 13 plus years. You have yours. I mean, we were just making stuff. And I think it's so interesting because we were also just at that point in our lives too, which, I was just having babies every year and a half, every 2 years. So I mean, it makes sense. We were just like so creative. And I still feel creative, but it's not in like the volume of children, it's not in the volume of content. But man, we really like did it. I mean, I'm like impressed just looking back how we even had like the capacity and the stamina. amongst attending births and having children to just make so much stuff. So,
And having no idea whether or not it was going to make us any money.
yeah, we did it because we loved it. And I think that is still a theme for both of us. Like, we've always done our best to follow what feels right. And yeah, when you're making stuff because it's your passion or you're putting stuff out in the world, it's kind of like, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, it kind of has to be for you in a way, not for you, but it has to be because you believe in it, because you love it. It can't be for any other reason,
Yeah.
in my opinion. I mean, that's the way it's always flowed best. So this school was just birthed literally out of us together, and it was beautiful. And the first couple of years, we were figuring things out. We changed some major things. The
We had
students had
tons of
feedback.
collaborators.
Yeah, we had tons of other women that had, taught for us or maybe graded stuff or led calls. Um, yeah, it was great. I mean, it was like a real birth of a thing, and then that like mothering, like where you're kind of figuring things out. Um, and a couple of years in, I feel like the school really hit its flow, its stride. Everything was kind of the way we wanted it. We were still kind of always thinking about, should we change it this way or redo it this way, but let it flow. And then, what was it, last summer, right? We redid, was that last summer already? I think
Yeah,
so.
but I think it was a year and
But
a
I
half
skipped parts.
ago that we actually said, "Hey, we're done." Um,
Okay.
I don't remember
Yes.
how exactly we said it. We said this was our final enrollment for this version, at least. But we, at that point, I want to say that was January 2025. I should have done my research before this,
Okay.
but forgive us if we have the timing wrong. I think that's around the time it was where we said, "Hey, we're actually not sure if we're ever going to enroll again." So maybe we should talk about why that was. Let's like kind of moonwalk back in time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Let's do that. And also, just saying that, I feel like it is so interesting when something is coming to a close. I don't know, just reflecting on my own life. Like, sometimes it's not just like in that moment or with that feeling, right? It's like it still takes a while to kind of sort out
Yeah.
the pieces and like how you fit in it. And just speaking for myself, back a year and a half ago, and in fact back 3 years ago, and some of this is definitely repetitive for people that listen to this, I just had a really big shift in my life. I attended a birth. The last birth I attended in Kentucky was just like the worst, sort of the worst ever. But at the same time, like, I wouldn't be sitting here. My life wouldn't be the way is right now without it. So it was just hugely transformative. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way. And we all had been through COVID. Like, we've all been through it in the last 3 to 5 to 6 years. But that was my piece that I didn't expect, that I didn't plan, that I didn't necessarily like. And it's taken a lot and going in different directions, and all of that is part of this story too, just like yours is as well.
Yeah. Was that was that 2023? Summer of
Hmm.
2023?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was like the spring of 2023 was this like terrible birth, and then we were already
That was after we
uh
had gone to Hawaii together, right?
yeah, we went to Hawaii in January. This birth was in April, and we came back to Hawaii to live in the summer, and that was already planned. So it was like the weirdest serendipity to have this be the last birth that I would attend there. I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
know any of this. The universe just had it planned. So anyway, since then, life has just unfolded in ways I haven't expected, and it hasn't really included going to births. And anyway, that's like a whole other story, and people have heard bits and pieces, but
But I think it's important to this story too because that's funny. Was it like April that birth happened?
yeah. April, God, I
Really?
want to say nine. I mean, what I do know the date somewhere in me. I think it was the 19th.
Yeah, we should compare at some point because that was like this, the same week I think that I got divorced. Basically.
Well, and you had a crazy birth back in April 5
Yeah.
years before. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Life is so crazy when you look at it in hindsight, right? And you're like glad you didn't know, but when you look at it, you can be like, "Oh, like there was one piece and then Margot
Mhm.
had this piece and then Maryn had this piece." And
Yeah.
like the whole while, the universe is conspiring to send us wherever it's sending us.
Wherever it's sending us. Yeah, because I had a transformative birth as well. I have to cough. Pardon me. And I had actually taken a whole year off of births intentionally. I think that was 2022.
Yeah, it was after Rumi.
Yeah. And there was a moment, I thought I was going to maybe move to Kentucky. There were like all these different kind of like what ifs and COVID, and we moved into a different
Yeah.
house. And like, and
Chaos.
then total chaos. And then, yeah, in 2022, middle of 2022 is when I initiated the divorce with my now ex husband. And um, tried to go back to births. Oh my gosh, sorry. Still getting over this cough. And it just like was a total flop. Like the births were great, like whatever. That they were fine. They were not flops. But like the experience of trying to go back into midwifery just like was so clunky and like not possible for me. And that was right after you had stopped. So then we were faced with this like, well, neither of us are doing this right now. Now what? This feels kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, I can speak for myself only, obviously, but it wasn't necessarily like intentional. Like I said, it's like I came here to Hawaii. I did attend one birth here, but the universe just wasn't like presenting anything like that. And that felt really hard too, because I thought, I would come here and do that. And there's like a whole political mess, I think, still around licensing here. Honestly, I don't know. I'm not really like tuned into it. But I think what came forward for me in that lull or that like space, that like abyss that I didn't really feel like I asked for, was this truth and awareness around my own health, like my own emotional health, my own nervous system. And, it's great to run around to births for God. I mean, literally, I did it for 15 years with only a break to have babies, really, and produce these amazing videos and have these clients that want to share like their resuscitations and like all the freaking cool stuff that I got to be a part of. And it's a whole other to like not have all that going on and have to sit with yourself and be aware that like you need to take better care of what's in there.
Yeah.
And I would like put money on it that like so many of these birth workers, doulas, midwives alike, gosh, what's wrong with us today? Maybe we're really like speaking something that's like so true, and it's like, oh, it's a little hard.
Mm.
um yeah, like I won't say we neglected that, but we were just busy doing the thing. And so I was shown very clearly that if I was ever to do the thing again, which is possible, and that thing being
Never say
taking
never.
care, yeah, like I'm not saying I'll never do that again in my life, but it was really illuminating because the experience I went through with that last birth was so hard for me. And I think it was so hard because, yeah, I was just running around, and I don't know, all of it could have been better. It could have been different, but it wasn't. So I decided to use that time to like learn some different stuff. I, learned somatic training and so much more about the body. And anyway, it's all to say that like the space had to be created for me to do that. And when we did revamp the school, you know, last summer or a year and a half ago or whenever it was, that's at least like my part of it was like, holy shit, like, how did we not have this in the school? Well, the answer is simple, because we hadn't been there yet. We hadn't walked that path. We hadn't been like sort of totally, emotionally obliterated by an experience, so we didn't have that to offer. So, whereas it maybe looked really hard, and even I think our students at the time are like, "Oh man, like are they going to make it through this?" Like maybe we shouldn't attend births. Like they're making it sound really awful. It was like, no, it was just like these things happen. And part of the training, part of our job as teachers is to include these uncomfortable parts
Yeah.
and to help you all be stronger women so that you can walk that path. And that is something I don't think anybody's really including, to my knowledge. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the hard experience and the really awkward space. And that's my side. That's how I came to like, okay, I don't think I'm going to do that again right now. But
Yeah.
while we had this school, I feel remiss. I feel irresponsible to not include what I've lived.
And I think that is part of what preempted us saying like, hey, we're done for now. Like this version doesn't feel like it still felt true. It's still none of it was not true. It just felt incomplete after what both of us had gone through. And for people who maybe don't know on here too, like I said, I got divorced. I developed a panic disorder is the technical term for it. I no longer would say I have that. So there was also this element of like, am I going to have panic attacks at these births that I have lined up? Like, what will happen if that happens? It's like new sense of like, I can't even trust my body because I was having all this like crazy somatic stuff and emotional mental health stuff. Um, from, I think it was accumulated for sure during those on-call years and midwifery years and early mothering years, but for me a lot of it was also just like the disintegration of the marriage, which was of my own doing. It was my choice, but still, it was just like this total rearranging of my day-to-day life and house, and it was really really intense. And so yeah, there was this other element of like, wait, am I disabled? Like, can I even be a midwife? Like, what would that look like? Plus then the on-call piece, which I didn't have an adult in the house to leave my kids in the middle of the night anymore. So there was just like logistics. And I've even said this recently, like in some ways I feel like my career, right, was something I lost, if that makes sense, like as it was like collateral for these choices that were right for me to make. And I had to grieve that. And like you though, there's still part of me that's like, I mean, I'm gonna be at a birth again someday. Like, it seems insane that I wouldn't in some capacity. Um, because I still very much in my heart am like, I'm a midwife. Like that's part of my path and was such a huge part of who I was and am now. So um, all of this is to say that was happening. This 2023 stuff happened. And then maybe it was even winter 2024. So whenever it was, we said like, we can't keep offering this version and we don't know if we're going to make another one, was the
Yeah.
honest like truth. And we enrolled one final time. And then, yeah, it was last summer that we were like, well, do we feel like we're ready to make that version? Because we also were like, we're not really ready to make the version that we want it to be,
Yeah.
but we don't really feel like good about the one that we have right now. We need to like put a pause so that we could maybe make, it was like all very like limbo-y. And then
Yeah.
kind of like the first time when we made the first version of the school, it like just clicked in and we were like, all right, let's do it. And we put
Yeah.
together version 2. You brought like your somatic training. I did some parts work training, and that kind of led into where I'm at now, which is I'm halfway through my master's in social work degree, and I'm doing, psychotherapy with people, but from very much an indie birth thing. So like that all has informed the second version that we made, which is really cool.
It
But
is. I want to add something that we added just so
yeah,
like I mean, I guess if you didn't know the first version, maybe it doesn't matter. But when we made the second version, yeah, like we each brought these like kind of newer concepts, trainings we had done. But we also added to like just the courses that were there. And I remember that, and I still think it's great, but it like felt really fun last summer to do that, to take a topic that we had been teaching on forever. We already had a great course, pick one, right? Like shoulder dystocia or one of the bigger complications.
Yeah.
And to go back and to just kind of like feel it in this different way and to encourage students to do that too. Like there is so much more here than meets the eye. God be with you if you have to extract a baby, right? But what's going on for you in that moment? And like, do you have what it takes, to be with that? And yes, to help efficiently and also to come out the other side. And, in some ways that sounds like a lot. And then in other ways, I'm like, how is this not part of being a midwife? Like, I am continually amazed, just seeing things pass by, um, like a breach training or whatever. And just the way these things are conducted now to me looks so insane. That you would just like go into a room and like practice these skills and like not talk about anything else, not care for yourself, not, bring the last birth with you or whatever it is. So, yeah, I'm grateful to like have that perspective now, and I think that's something that really comes through in the second version, even if someone never saw the first version, is
Yeah.
that it's a little bit different. It's a little bit unlike anything you're going to get anywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in some ways, I feel we could just be adding on forever, like as life takes us where it takes us. In fact, I heard this quote the other day and it was like on a surfing podcast, but it was just about mastery, which, is a thing in all disciplines. I mean, surfing's definitely one, but it was just talking about how mastering something is really just being on the journey. And sometimes that's hard, because it's like you want this sort of endpoint. And when you create a school, it can kind of feel like, well, this is the endpoint right now. And that's sort of true because you have, a concrete thing people are learning from. But I guess if any of us are on the journey to mastery, as midwives or just as people, as women, like it does keep growing, it does keep changing, it does keep having things that you add, it has things that change. And so with a school, that's online and is like somewhat fixed, I feel like we've done a really good job of making it alive. And I think that's where we're kind of at right now. That's how I feel right now, is like this is what's alive right now in this school, is everything we've added, our commitment to the students that are there, and also our commitment to ourselves and where we're going, each of us in life, and saying like, hey, um, this is the last time that we're going to offer this into the future. And that's the truth, and it's a great offering, and there's so much value there. But because it is something that is alive, like we have made the choice to not keep adding to it, like to not keep, to keep changing it for now and honoring our own capacity. And like I said, where we're
Yeah.
each going in life. That's how I feel, is like, because it is, it is something we could just keep coming back to, and we might in a couple of years even, but we don't know. So we have the energy to have created what we created sort of twice over in the school, and it's there for, this last cohort of women that might see it for what it is, might be interested in all these different angles and perspectives and things that we've placed there for them to consider.
Yeah. Just because I feel like we haven't really stated this super clearly yet. Like, can we talk about, if the school is so good, why don't we want to keep enrolling in it, selling it, making money
Yeah,
from
yeah.
that? Like, I want to maybe dig into like the business kind of side of things too, because I think it's really interesting. But
Yeah.
let's start there.
Well, I think what I just shared, isn't the business perspective, but it's more like the personal emotional side, which is like we need to sort of cap it energetically, like we have
Mm-hmm.
something really good, but we're both going off in different directions. So while, we're both having experiences, of course, all the time and life experiences, we're saying like, hey, we're not going to keep adding to this right now. We don't have the capacity for that. And it's really great the way it is. So
Yeah.
we'll see where life brings us. Um, but from a business perspective, honestly, for me, it's like the same as the emotional perspective, which is like if the energy isn't flowing to a thing, then I try to honor that. And really, I feel like I don't get away with it. Like the universe doesn't let me get away with it. So, um, I think if my life is going off in a different direction, which it definitely is, then I need to honor that.
Yeah.
And that's really the simple answer. It's not about anyone else. Like, there could be women out there that are like, oh, darn it, I was going to do the school next year. And it's like, sorry, not sorry. Like, we have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd written down that like a business can be viable and still not be the thing you want to organize your life around. If the organizing principle is moving a different direction, or like, yeah, I think like you said, putting a cap on it, because it's like we could keep adding to it, making sure it felt alive and up to date and current with what we're doing, but it won't make sense at a certain point if it's not what we're actually doing, is kind of how it feels to me.
Yeah. And to like bring in, hopefully we're not going totally into the weeds here. So thanks for, thanks for sticking with it if you're listening to all this. But something I think that feels important to talk about is just like the effects of like social media and um, like kind of like this guru thing that's going on and like the people that are making stuff that are just putting it up in a day. They don't have experience, but they have like a really nice Instagram grid. Like, I know I sound bitter, and maybe I kind of am, because I'm really disappointed with our culture. I feel like a lot of disappointment around women being taken for a ride, in a sense, by things that aren't true or real. And I know if there's nothing else we've both done over the years, it's been true and real. Like, it's been authentic to the point where, I was kind of laughing when I wasn't laughing, but like when we were sharing our like sob stories about the hard things that have happened to us. In this moment, I feel so proud of us for being real when we could have like hidden all that. We could have like glossed over it. We could have, we could have never talked about it. Like, we could have just kept with this like social media brand that, yes, we created, but also I think a lot of this creates itself, which is a whole other part of the conversation. So yeah, I don't know.
Can you,
Like,
can you say more about that? Like, what is uncomfortable? Because I think that was a question I had. It was like, what
yeah,
has become uncomfortable about being a brand or a public personality in the birth and women's space for you, like over the years?
yeah,
And like, how has that changed since, we've stepped away from Instagram, and we've, in a lot of ways stepped away from that world, even though we've been running our own stuff?
yeah. Well, first, it's not like, I think we're on par with like celebrity itis or like influencers that have hundreds of thousands, right? We all know we're talking about kind of this microcosm
Yeah.
that is the birth world. And the way it feels to me is, we were sort of super influential and popular when that was convenient, when it fit whatever the social media narrative was doing at the time. And I think that includes women and what they were looking for. I also think it includes algorithms and like shitty stuff that no one really understood. But we wrote it out for a time, and it felt celebrity related in that, like, oh wow, people are watching our stuff. Like, they want us to teach, they want us to do this thing, they want us to speak. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed speaking my truth. And then kind of as all this social media stuff shifted, which, you know, we could talk about, but I think it definitely did. Like the algorithm started only showing things they wanted to. We were shadow banned constantly on Instagram. Plus, we started being really real about our lives, which just like turns off a certain part of the population that only wants to believe what they want to believe about you. If you're the superstar midwife and you suddenly attend a shitty birth where the baby almost dies, people shut their eyes, they shut their ears, like they didn't want to hear it. And I don't apologize for that. Like that was real and that is a part of this path. And it's not, you know, the rock star version. So, kind of all of these things were happening at the same time. I think, you know, we did attract a certain number of students over the years who thought they would sort of be rock stars or put us on a pedestal. And realizing that in hindsight is super uncomfortable to me because that's never what I intended. I was just doing what I thought, you know, what I was meant to do, attending births and sharing and teaching. Like that's what I'm here to do. So, you know, social media I think has been like the rise and fall of a lot of businesses and a lot of brands. And for us, I will say, at least me, I have intentionally removed myself from it, which, you know, doesn't help a business. I'm well aware of that, but it felt like a huge choice. It was either, you know, my own integrity, my own health, even my, you know, my children over this brand, over this like persona that people wanted to believe. So I wasn't willing to do that, and I'm still not willing to do that. So I think, you know, this school will meet the women that are on that path, the more quiet path, the one that you don't have to broadcast. And that's been my life the last 3 years. Everyone, like, no one knows what I'm doing. Like I'm surfing, and I could talk a million hours about that, but like I really haven't, because it's just a personal journey and it's my life. And, you know, the fact that life, personal life, even intersects with business is kind of so fucked up, but we've allowed it. We've allowed social media to do that. And so now it's not just a midwifery school you're buying. You feel like you're buying people. You feel like you're buying these, you know, these women you've put somewhere else. And we all know with like the fall of the Free Birth Society how bad that can be as well. You know, like in this collective wow, we really thought we were getting something we didn't. So I think there's also been a lot of deception and weird shit happening on those platforms. And it's all part of our story too, because we were on there. So
Yeah.
the school now to me just feels like a beautiful, you know, sort of quiet offering. I don't know how else to say it, because it's only for the women that are sort of really paying attention or looking for something different. It's not flashy. It's not because we're out there still producing these videos or going to births. I think it would be for a different reason. And I'm well aware that that's not a reason that many people are um, resonant with. You know, they want to be the rock star. They want to be the one that saves the day. They want to be the one that can attend births after 6 months of a course. Like that's just a high percentage of people. So maybe that'll shift, maybe it won't. But that's definitely part of the story of why we are removing ourselves from this, whatever it is, culture.
Yeah.
Wow,
I
that was a
think
lot.
too. No, that's great. I think it's such an important conversation, and I know we were talking about like other things that are kind of happening right now in the world of like course creators and the woman who recently like committed suicide, and um how that kind of fits in with all of these conversations around public persona, internet, course selling, and like having like this pressure that I think we just resisted because we're just such I don't even know what word to call us. But
Well,
like
the pressure to be fake, to
yeah,
show a life that you're not really living.
and we just never were willing to do that. One, because it just sounded like, I mean, obviously out of integrity, and then two, just it sounded exhausting to like pretend all the time to be some way that we weren't.
Yeah.
And I think it was last fall that I deleted pretty much all of our videos off of Instagram and YouTube, and left some things up, and like some of them are so funny. They're like, these candids of like you and me, just like not looking polished, like just us
Yeah, no
hanging out.
filters.
No filters. Like our kids had like smoothies all over their faces, or like
Yeah.
we just never did that. I mean, we have beautiful photos, don't get me wrong, and, professional quality stuff that we were sharing, but it wasn't like there was never like ill intent or like intent to like make it seem like something that wasn't real. And I think we've talked about this in different ways over the years. Like, we could have done that and we would have made more money. Like, if we had had no integrity, um, and whatever that set of skills and um, intentions is, I guess. So I think as we did that, well, and it's funny, I was saying right before we hit record, like, I'm going to get coffee in a little bit at a coffee shop where the barista recognized me and she's like, "Are you Margot from Indie Birth?" Um, and that happens like twice a year, probably. Um, and it still is so weird. And the example, did I talk about this with you on a podcast? I don't think I did. Like, the last time that it happened at this coffee shop, it was like a really sad day for me, where I was like double breaking up with my boyfriend at the time. So I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's me, Margot from Indie Birth. Like, pardon me while I go cry into my latte in the corner." Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It was like, whoever you think I am, like, I don't know what that means to you, and I don't know what that means you want me to do or be. But I'm probably gonna fail at whatever the thing is you want me to do or be
Yeah.
in this coffee shop right now.
Yeah.
So there's just, like, in some moments it's like really fun to be like, "Oh my gosh, people know our work, they've seen our stuff, like, it's made an impact." Like, that part is really amazing and cool. But there's been a real relief, I think, in stepping away. And like, as I'm kind of picturing my next chapter, and like I said, maybe birth is in the future, but my immediate next chapter is like, I'm probably just going to be a therapist, like a no name a no name therapist, like in Tucson, Arizona. And like, like, the people who come see me and want help, I can help, and it's really special and meaningful, and it's been amazing. And they also don't have any idea who Indie Birth Margot is, and it's like really nice, actually. um to the point where, I've been like, will I try to like have a therapy Instagram someday and be like a therapist influencer? And I'm like, I think no, I think I've been there, done that.
Yep.
Even though it was to a lesser extent, but yeah, those are my thoughts on just like the freedom that comes from not doing that, and like, for us to really level up or expand, or what's the word I'm looking for? What's the marketing term? I'm trying. We don't even know the marketing
I
term.
don't know it.
See, we don't even know it. Oh, it's gonna come to me later. But to do that, like, there's kind of not a way to do it without buying into the I'm a brand, we're a brand, like, look at us and we have it all figured out, and like, we'll solve all your problems. And like, I think we had this moment in time where like things happened organically with Instagram. We did use ads for a while there, but you could like target like just the right people, and like, it felt like there was just like this flood of interest, and like, it all just felt really easeful in a way that now you have to kind of play the game. And we, I think, have said we're not gonna, like, we just can't and won't. And so like, where does that leave us?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so grateful for, all the years we did that. And like you said, the ways it flowed and felt really good. I think of sharing my own births, and, part of me is like, oh gosh, like, I kind of can't believe I did that. But it felt so right, and it felt so natural, and I was not doing it to make money. I was so excited to show women
Yeah,
how birth could look.
share. And
I mean, like, gosh, I had some of the most amazing births, and the videos and the photos, right? Like, it just fit so perfectly with our message, our teaching message, and our foundational beliefs. Like, we were living it like 500%, So I think that's also part of it, is like, I'm done with that chapter of my life and I'm not
Exactly.
having any more babies. And, gosh, if I did, I'm like, I wouldn't even tell anyone. That's the honest truth. I would probably, like, it's just, I'm past that point in my life where I have any interest in anyone like seeing what I'm doing. Not that I don't have things to teach. I think that'll always be part of me. But I think, again, there's something about this path of, I keep saying mastery or just wisdom. Not that I'm a master of birth. It's not that at all. It's just everything that I engage in life, I want to like really give my full attention to. And I really want to understand to the best of my ability. And that, for that 20 years of my life was birth. And that wisdom, that experience doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't for you either. In fact, I would say, it's something I think about every day, honestly. Like when I'm out in the ocean, like there are so many parallels between the two. This, natural force and birth and labor and mothering and hard lessons and growth. Like birth has taught me so much about life. And so it's not like those lessons, it's not like irrelevant ever. Like I'm thinking about it all the time, and it's just part of like the fabric of me, is understanding or trying to understand, and then respecting the mystery, which I think is like a huge thing to come back to. Education so important, experience, and also like life is a mystery. Who would have ever thought, we would do what we did and now be here saying this? Because you wouldn't, right? Like you want to keep things the same. You want to just keep doing what works year in and year out. And if you're paying attention in life, it doesn't always work that way. So I'm proud of what we've done. And like you say, who knows what's in the future? We can't know that. But what we have done is really solid. And yeah, we don't have a way of like fanfaring it anymore. We're not like putting stories on Instagram and spreading the word. So if you're someone that's listening to this podcast and you've appreciated what we've done over the years in any way, you can always share it with people. That's the good old fashioned way, just word of mouth of like, hey, these ladies are really awesome. They've done some great stuff over the years, and their midwifery school is not going to be offered past September. So go check them out and, ask them some questions or get to know what they've done if you've never heard about them. I think that's what I would love to get back to, is just like the cool stuff wins, not
The
I mean
cool
the
stuff.
cool wise stuff wins, the stuff that matters wins, not just like what, like we've said, AI generated, or just like, oh, I went to a weekend workshop and now I'm a midwife. That like integrity wins, that like putting in your time, as old fashioned as that might be nowadays, having 15, 20 years of experience, even if people have never heard of us, might give them pause and be like, oh, that's interesting, because no one I'm following now has more than a year of experience. Like, oh, is that a thing? Yeah, it is a
Yeah.
thing. And, the women that came before us were probably in the same spot, honestly. Like I think of the older midwives that we know, right? And it's like at a
Mhm.
certain point, um, yeah, like the tables just turn and people think they want something different or new. But I will always go back to, just the old ways if possible, while inspiring a new way. And I feel like that's always been what we've done. The definition of radical is just like, how do we take what we learned and bring it forward?
Yeah. So we are going to have one final cohort. We've been like dancing around this. Maybe we should have led with it at the top. One final cohort of the midwifery school starting on the equinox, September 21st. And that's like 6-ish weeks away. I probably will post some stuff on Instagram half-heartedly.
Yeah.
But yes, please let people know. Um, and I guess, what are we committing to with this enrollment? What are we promising? What are we not promising? What's different about this one? I think would be good to talk about just briefly.
Hmm. Well, if you're a student in our doula academy or the midwifery school, there are live calls that Margot and I do once a month. So we're still,
So every
you
two
know,
weeks we take turns.
oh, sorry. Yeah. I do one every month, and you
Mm-hmm.
do one every month. So there's 2 calls a month that you get us for, and we talk about, real things, answer questions. So I feel like that's pretty cool and keeps us connected as well to like the students and where they're at and what they're thinking about. So, you do get access to us in that way for the 2 years. And I don't feel like anything's a whole lot different, except we're saying like this is the last enrollment. So everybody's gotten 2 years to do the program in the recent past. And we're just going to stick to that. That's all. So,
Right. That there will
you got,
not be access past the 2 years.
yeah, you've got 2 years just like everybody else has, but there won't be, probably a whole lot of leeway at the moment. So it'll be 2 years for you to get the stuff done, which really is more than enough time if you're making this commitment. The tuition will be or is 7777 for this final group. There is an application fee and an application. I think it's $50 for the application fee. And please fill out an application and we'll go from there. So you start with the application, and then we expect full payment unless you are approved by one of these other, what are they called? Like third partiers.
Third partiers.
Third partiers, like we as IndieBirth don't offer payment plans. That's a whole other podcast. Not that
Whole other
interesting.
podcast. Learned a lot about that.
Yeah, no payment plans. So yeah, so that's the gist. And it's August 4th or 5th right now. So like you say, there are 6 weeks to kind of get it together, to sit with if this is for you, and to do it if it is.
And be part of the final party.
Mm-hmm.
I was just gonna specify too that the actual coursework, the way we have it laid out, is roughly 18 months. So that gives you a lot of time if you did need to take breaks here and there for different reasons. But the 2 years is very firm. Like we will not be guaranteeing like access to the stuff beyond that 2 year mark, which we have sometimes done for people in the past. So that is not going to be a thing, since this is the bookend of this project. So I guess last question for you, Maryn, like what if this is really the end of IndieBirth Midwifery School?
Yeah, then I think we celebrate it for all that it's been, and all the students that have come through and loved it and become midwives. I think for us, it's important to remember that, because that was the intention. And I
Yeah.
think we've been successful. I know we have been successful, because midwifery school is hard. I mean, a lot of people don't make it through school of any kind, much less midwifery school, and then go on to do an apprenticeship. So the students that are out there doing this work, kind of not in our name, but like having done our program, makes me feel great. And I'm like, okay, I've done something cool with my life. If I do nothing else, that is that. And like you say, I don't know what's next. I have the suspicion sometimes that the world is just changing so much that maybe one day we will come up with something else, and it'll be just like so out of the box. Right. It feels that way right now, that like we have more that we're going to put together, also because we work so well together and we just always have. But it's going to be something really different, and I don't know what that is, and maybe it won't
Something really,
happen.
really weird.
Well, I mean, like, I know you felt that too. It's and not to take us all the way back, like we're wrapping this up, but it's like when we started, we were one of the first. And at this point, like you said, course creation is just like it can be generated by AI. So it's lost, I think it's lost its specialness in some ways. Only to say that, anything is possible. Like creation can take a lot of shapes and forms. So I would never say never, because I don't say never to anything. I'm open to wherever the universe brings us. And yeah, I think for now it's authentic and true and smart of us to respect, the signs we're getting.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the letting it go I feel like has the potential of opening space for, whether it's with, our indie birth joint work or our own stuff. But like, as you're saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, remember when we were talking about, like, maybe I shouldn't even say because it's like top secret cool project, but like there are other things that we've thought about, talked about, and like it just came to mind too. Like, the school has been amazing, beautiful. I stand by it. If you want to be a midwife, you should totally do it. And also, like, some of my favorite indie birth memories are the in-person things that we've
Yeah.
done with people. And I think that's been on the docket. It's felt like energetically for a long time. And it's something that either just like, phase of life and like the distance with us right now, you being in Hawaii, me being in the mainland, and, like that just hasn't really happened. And so stuff like that, I wonder if will um, become energetically possible if we close this other door. So I'm excited. I guess I'll leave it on that note. I'm curious and I'm excited. Um, there's a small amount of sadness, but it's pretty small. Just like thinking back to, I just remember like feeling scrappy and like putting together some of these courses, like while my kid was napping when I only had the one, and like on a rainy Duluth day, and just like being in the thick of it. So it's like interesting to think back to that version of me and being like, I wish I could tell her like it's eventually going to be over. Like, so enjoy this moment. I think we did. I think we did a good job of like enjoying the ride so that when you get off, it doesn't have to be too sad.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's normal to feel however, and I feel sad in some moments, just like, I don't know, just like how much things have changed that like no one has the control over, but I think ultimately, like you say, it's exciting what's ahead. I am excited, just about the stuff I'm doing. I wrote a new book and I'm going to have a lot of new offerings, and you're doing all this amazing therapy stuff. And, I think midwifery itself is in this transformation as well in a lot of ways. So I don't think we are alone. Like, I think we're sort of representing what a lot of people are feeling as well. And even those of you that are walking the path and wanting to do the school, I think it's so great because take that and just like let it lead you. I feel like we're just so much less rigid about what that looks like. I mean, I think education's important, I think experience is important, that hasn't changed, but because the world is so different, I'm like so excited to see what women walking this path will ultimately do with it, that maybe we didn't do, right? Like that we
Mm-hmm.
didn't get a chance to do, that we won't do, because I think there is something big ahead for women in birth. I think there's a lot of ways that it needs to shift and change. And yeah, I think we'll get to see what that is, maybe through our own daughters or, whatever comes next. But I'm here for it. I am not necessarily leading that charge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just want to say too, like I am so glad that I walked this path. I have a new therapist myself. He was like, "How did you get into midwifery?" And so I told him like this whole story, and was sort of reliving it a week or two ago. And it's like no part of me regrets having done it.
Yeah,
Even
same.
now on the other side, not knowing if I'm going to continue to do it ever again or go back to it. So if you're listening, whether you're like contemplating becoming a midwife, or maybe you're just someone who like found this podcast and have no interest in midwifery, like if it's whatever the thing is that your heart is like, you should try this out and you should do this, like, man, do it. Same with the school, like zero regrets. Like it was so impactful, changed my life, changed other people's lives. Like, um, yeah, just because something ends doesn't mean it wasn't worth doing. And so I think um, I'll just like leave people with that and myself with that, where it's like, you really, and I know we've said that to in aspiring midwives over the years, where it's like you don't have to know what you're going to do after for it to be worth doing now, but I really really mean that. It was invaluable to learn how to be a midwife, even if I only did it for 10 years. Like,
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's still one of the coolest things I think you could ever do with your life or part of your life. Like I said, it wasn't, totally intentional. Like if none of that had happened and I was still doing that, like I'd be happy doing it. That just wasn't my path. But
yeah,
I think it's one of the most amazing and rewarding and just like passion driven, life giving things you can do with your life. And I loved all those years and all the women that taught me. And, you know, honestly, I think it just makes you into like a very resilient person too, and a very like there's so many great qualities that midwives have to like be able to do it. So it's funny, even when I'm out in the ocean, like it'll be it'll be challenging, it'll be scary, or like my coach will say something to me and I'm like, and I've said to the one in particular who's a guy, I'm like, dude, like I used to attend births at home. Like, like does that mean anything to you? And most people's eyes just get big because they're like, "Oh, you what?" Like, first of all, right? Babies are born at home and what? And it's like, yeah, like the tenacity you have to have
yeah,
for that. Especially doing it like the way I feel like I did it. Like I didn't give a fuck about licensing. I didn't try to please anybody. I seriously was like led by divinity. Like it was, like it's a thing that God leads you to do or whoever you look to. So if that's you, it doesn't change where we're at. It doesn't change, social media doesn't change that. I think it's really a path that you are asked to do. And I think that's sort of a great way to wrap it up, is like we were asked to do it for as long as we were. And you honor that, you honor the call and you honor the lull and the break. So if you're hearing that call or you have been, this is seriously your last chance to do it with us.
final
That's all.
call,
Yeah, that's all.
closing time.
Closing time. Wow, this has been so great doing this with you. I miss
So great.
talking with you too in this way. So
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for being here, everybody. um Here's cheers to the last indie birth
Jason,
midwifery school cohort. Maybe like we should celebrate somehow on our own, you and I. We have to figure that out, but it would be fun to like, I don't know, do something and just celebrate the 9 years that this was in existence for.
and if you're an alumni listening to this and you would like to do something fun together to celebrate, let us know. It'd be really fun to like get some fresh new little like video testimonials that we could share, or they could be just for me and Maryn to look at and enjoy. Either way, but it might be fun too to have kind of like a little virtual party. Maybe we should have, maybe that's what we should do, a little
Yeah,
virtual party.
yeah, we
That'd
could
be
do
fun.
that. But yeah, like Margot said, if you're an alumni, I mean, feel free to reach out, hear how you are and how this has impacted you. And maybe, hearing this message too for some of those people feels like something as well, right? To be like, I attended a midwifery school and it's no longer around. And one day people will be like, who? What? Maybe they're already saying that. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
but, life moves on. So thanks for being here with us.
Yeah.
Check out the link in the podcast. It's indiebirth.org/school, I believe. You can get all the details. You can read all the fine print of everything that you need to know before you apply and get that application in before we begin with the last and final cohort around equinox, which is September 21st. So
All
bye
right.
for now.
Bye for now.